and you need to be out of the country. In order for you to really, absorb new ideas and technology and things like that, in order for us to become innovative, it doesn't have to be in Thailand. The key difference is that a lot of politicians back in Thailand, they think of this kind of industrial policy as made in Thailand. I think of it as made with Thailand. It doesn't have to be confined within the territory of our country. It's too small. You have to have regional ambition in order to become innovative. Second is on pain point innovation. All of that inequality that I was talking about. If you're coming from Sattahip or from Chonburi, for example, the water quality is not very good. If you come to Phuket, the problem with water leakage is about 50%. The water goes into the system and it goes to your hotel. You input about 100, it comes by only 50 because of all the leakages in the water system. How do you use off-shelf innovation that's already existing? UX, UI, smart metering, water flow analysis, all these things that are available anywhere in the world, but use it for inequality. Technology for inequality, how do you fix inequality of Thailand? Because if you see how much it is, if you turn it into an asset and digitize it using technology to use it, that's like lots and lots of money for all the folks from the business school. Those people that think, they want to move to Southeast Asia, they want to move to Thailand and have a business idea, just look at all the inequality that the country has. And then use innovation that is off the shelf. It doesn't have to be like the most advanced things to do, but you put it into a package, you'll be able to make sure that there's a big market for you to tackle. And the last one is niche innovation. Whether it's silicon carbide, whether it's gallium nitride, these are the semiconductor industries that is too small for the Americans to think about. It's too small for the Indians to think about. It's too small for the Japanese to think about. It's too small for the South Korean to think about. But Thailand has a lot of electronic industry and landscape and capability that we can focus, because these two specialized tech is very important for EV and also solar cells. So it can be, if you ask the government and they say next steps will be robotics and semiconductors, it's too big. And it's too big, and you can never compete with the amount of investment that Japanese is doing, or South Korean, or Vietnam, or America, or India. So it has to be something that is relevant, but very niche, and something that Thailand can innovate on. On super aging society. So aging more, aging fast. 21% of Thai population will be older than 65 years old. Compare that to the world average of 14%. Singapore is only 18.5%. That number within 2030 will become 30%. So imagine if you have a country, 100 people, and 30 of them are retiring. They're older than 65, and the remaining 60-something has to provide as a workforce and provide as a social safety net for the 35% that is retiring already. It could happen in Japan, it could happen in South Korea, it could happen in Europe, but it's happening in Thailand now. So that's something that we're facing in the future. And the workforce by 2035, like I said, 30% of the population will be in retirement. But then I think of this as a super economy, as an opportunity for Thailand to leverage itself and use it to tackle the aging society problems in Thailand. Whether it's assistive healthcare, whether it's aging in places, whether it's a silverpreneur, silver fitness, wellness, and travel, or what I call dementia village. Dementia village is a concept developed in the Netherlands back in the year 2000 or something like that. I'll probably come up with a better name. Not exactly dementia village, but neuro wellness village or something like that. But if you design the entire thing, the entire community, and I'm thinking about Lampang province up north in Thailand, where 30% of the people are already aging. make it a universal design, big signs integrated in the community.
And I would like to ask from your knowledge of your resources, how would you help endorse them to grow at scale if you want to push this forward to a public of people in Thailand? And I actually own a startup company here too, and I did what you suggest. I moved out of the country to start a business here.
Someone way ahead of the curve.
One more online. Excellent. He's getting his steps in.
We have a question from a live audience in Thailand. Do you think much of these solutions will be impeded by the fact that it will be now near impossible to change the constitution?
Yes, I anticipated this kind of questions before. That's why I started the talk. It's not going to be a political one, and there's political constraint, financial constraint, and legal constraint, which I intentionally left out of the presentation because that's another lecture. That's another thing that we talk about. Obviously, you have to follow your heart but take your brain with you, and obviously we're trying to come up with innovative ideas to turn crisis into competitiveness. We have to think, without the constraints first and work backwards on how to fix the constraints, whether it's legal, whether it's financial, whether it's political will. Which goes back to the first questions in terms of institutions blocking election results to become election outcome. That's essentially what it is in a sentence, that election victory does not translate to governance. The question becomes independent organizations, but independent of what? Independent of who and who watches the watchdog. Yesterday at Part-Time Politics, we did talk about this a little bit, but what we are trying to do and to make sure that the independent organizations are truly independent and linked to the people. In terms, that's what democracy means, and that's on three things. First thing is on the origin of these independent organizations. Are they appointed or are they linked to the people in any way? Second is on the transparency. Obviously, there was a court order to dissolve political parties on and on, but you're never allowed to criticize the court. So there's no transparency on arguing back or using logic to really talk about whether it's legal, whether it makes sense, whether it's logical or not. And the third one is about accountability. How do you make sure that, such a very big power, 9 people, 5 people commission, whether it's election commission, whether it's anti-corruption commission, whether it's the court, just 7 to 9 people can get rid of election winner, and also the prime minister. The reason was also removed. So it's not just a partisan issue; it's a bipartisan issue. But if you don't take care of the origin, the transparency, and the accountability of their decision, then we can never move beyond the cycle, the vicious cycle that we see. And obviously, winning elections to be in the government and have enough votes to amend the constitution or to amend laws is something that is a stepping stone towards that institutional reform, constitutional justice that we were talking about. In terms of 1963, the Papat first plan on equality, I read that, and then I was working in the government before coming to the Kennedy School. I think that was maybe the 5th version, the 6th version, and they were still talking about inequality. And then it was when I reached Kennedy School, then I started to learn that inequality comes in various ways. Income equality is one, and that's usually what they talk about, measured by Gini coefficient. But then there's wealth inequality, land inequality, resource inequality, public health inequality, education inequality, access to power inequality. So if you just touch on just one particular popular inequality KPI, which the government talks about a lot, which is the income inequality, and you look at the Gini coefficient, it looks okay. It's not that bad. But the devil is in the detail, just as the first slide that I showed you in terms of deposit, in terms of land ownership. That's when you started to understand, oh, inequality is not income. And when the government talks about Gini coefficient, it's not that bad. But if you look at all these land ownership concentration, wealth concentration, over centralization in Bangkok public schools, that's when you start to understand that if this plan becomes the 100th plan, the gap is not going to go away. And that's why when we were campaigning, we tackled the reform, the structure, the access to land ownership and things like that, and not just looking at the top quintile and the bottom quintile when it comes to income equality. Last one was about unicorn, moving forward. The thing is, there's two animals that stop unicorn happening in Thailand, startups. The first one is the tiger, the second one is the elephant. The bureaucracy of doing a lot of paper when you are trying to get grants from the government to be a startup, it improved a lot, to be fair. But in order for you to get into digital innovation or Thailand 4.0 grant or the startup grant, it's like a huge amount of pieces of paper that you need to do, and many criteria and many conditions, and also not very regional ambition focus. So that's why I felt like you have to move fast and break things. Yeah, that's what startup is all about. You are disrupting things. It has to be very fast, very flexible in the way you want to do it. That's why you should be anywhere in the world as long as you are linked to Thailand. That's how I'm going to change the innovation policy once I become the Prime Minister 10 years from now. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't go. And last but not least, the tiger, the large conglomerates, the monopolies. You're in fintech and you want to do a digital wallet, you got to make sure you wait for the banks. I'm not saying that there's any correlation, but if you want to be in fintech, you want to do peer-to-peer lending, you want to do virtual banking and things like that, you got to get the permits, and the permits are somewhat related to the sleeping tigers in the Thai economy. So if we don't fix it to be firm ground, fair game, and then fast growth. When the government talks about it, we want to be fast growth, let's do robotics, let's do genetic engineering, biotech, all these cool things, but they don't tackle about the firm ground, the quality of the education, the access to liquidity, the financial inclusion. They don't talk about fair game, not using law as barrier to entry and things like that. So you got to build it from the bottom up, because it's been proved again and again that trickle down economics doesn't work. Fortunately, all of the things must come to an end, but this doesn't quite end. In a moment, right outside, we're going to have a public reception, and people will be here, mingle with you, get your photos and everything, so it's not quite over. But before we exit this beautiful hall, please join me first in thanking our online viewers. Our online viewers from Southeast Asia have been up since 2 a.m. tomorrow morning to tune in. So please join me. And finally, please join me in expressing our deep appreciation to Pundita for so generously sharing his experience and insights with us. The conversation includes
ยืดอกท้าทายให้ความทุกข์ทนเมื่อความหวังรออยู่ข้างหน้าดูคลิปจบแล้วอย่าลืมช่วยกดไลค์กด Subscribe และกดกระดิ่งให้ด้วยนะครับ